You're listening to Games from the Cellar, where we play a board game and then we talk about it. I'm Steven, your host, and tonight I was joined by John and Chris to play Acquire. Acquire was designed by Sid Sackson and was first published by 3M in 1964. It was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres in 1979, the first year the Spiel des Jahres was awarded. At the time of this recording, Acquire has a 7.3 rating with 19,000 ratings on BoardGameGeek and has a ranking of 234. It's a 3 to 6 player medium weight game that should play in about 60 minutes. So thank you for joining us in the cellar as we go in depth with Acquire.
And we get to talk about how ugly this personal copy is.
You know, not everybody has the luxury of having a designer copy
the
like you have.
$5 copy from Barnes & Noble.
Well, people just didn't know what they had at that point. You should have picked up 3 copies.
Yeah, I should have, now that you mention it. I could have parlayed each of those into $7.
Or you could have this terribly just beat to hell looking version from the 1970s.
This is the old man version. This may be 60s.
1966.
Yeah, this is the 3M copy.
Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company.
That's the 3Ms and 3M.
Is that before Post-it notes?
Before Post-it notes,
It was
yeah.
before Post-it notes. It was.
So we were playing Acquire. It's a Sid Sackson classic. It's probably the first Euro game.
Yeah.
I know the definition of Euro has changed over the years, but when people think of American games, it's roll and move, it's thematic, and when you think of the old European style, it's highly mathematical and I would say dry, but I guess thematically it's pretty dry, but in its essence, it's one of the most simple games that you can learn to play, but it's just such a masterpiece in design. We've probably played this game dozens of times, and we pull it out at least twice a year, I guess. Yeah. I would say.
Yeah, and it's kind of a special occasion when we do. I mean, we kind of feel like, let's go after Acquire again.
Yeah. Every time we play it, it's made some type of magical memory.
Yeah.
That you can kind of bring back up, and it's the whatever you do, don't run out of money.
Don't run out of money.
And what happens? Especially with the 3 of us playing.
We always run out of money.
Yeah, don't run out of money. That's the key. You are given, $6,000 to start, and, Monopoly, you want to spend your money down so that you have the most property, but in other games, it always seems like a good idea to spend your money down to get more things so that you hit more often, but with Acquire, it's this fine knife's edge.
Yeah. You need to stay at least a little bit liquid because there's going to be an opportunity that's going to land in your lap.
Keeping some money back just in case. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So the rules for this game fit in the box lid to give you an idea, and that's where they're actually written in this particular copy. The game's very simple, very straightforward. It's the kind of game you can learn. You can read the rules in probably 5 minutes, and you can probably learn how to play functionally enough in 10. I mean, there's a couple of concepts you have to pick up, but this is just a tight little game, not a whole lot going on technically, but once you start playing and once you start working the angles, things can get very complicated very quickly. And that's the nature of Euro. Tight, simple rules, some level of scarcity, something that everybody's fighting for, and this game just has that in spades.
Yeah, it's the most strategic version of a bingo board I've ever seen. We've played this a few times. Anyone have any particular memories that they'd like to share?
I think we had just about every hotel out on the board. We were all sitting out of money.
All 3 of us.
All 3 of us. We couldn't decide which hotel to merge together.
And we all have the chips that are keeping the other 2 guys from merging.
Yes.
So all of us are like, I'm going to keep holding on as long as I can until somebody else has to blink first. That was a very interesting game.
There was a good, the bad, and the ugly type of moment. It's who could keep drawing tiles that would give them opportunities to not play,
right.
to not benefit the other people at the table.
Please, God, let me pull junk. I mean, it was over and over again.
Yeah, I think it was like, what was about the third one that merged before you actually got some cash back in your pocket?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like we said at the top. Keep money available, because there are going to be opportunities later on where you need that money. And the only way you get money in this game is when chains merge.
Right.
And it can happen where if you dump a bunch of money into one hotel, it can be completely isolated and you never get a merger.
Yeah.
Or it becomes the one
the big one.
Or it becomes the big
that
one.
will never get merged. You'll never get money out of it, and everybody can buy up all the stock.
Right. Everybody else is dancing stuff around on the other hotels, and you're holding the big marker, and that's good. But they just get to churn and churn, and the churn is where you make the cash.
Yeah. And sometimes being the founder pays off, but in that particular instance, being the founder just can kind of hobble you.
Yeah. The nice thing is that you can buy into other hotels without having to lay a chip in it.
Yep.
If you had to lay a chip before you could buy into it, that would really suck. But being able to buy into other hotels and then getting them to merge is where you make your money.
Yeah,
So
but you have to keep money aside back to be able to buy into.
Have to be in a position
to
do
see
that.
which one is going to get bought into, because you want that cash capital coming back.
There's two pieces in this game that are working. One is the sort of geometric puzzle that's going on the board, and the spaces on the, at least on the version we're playing from, it's a grid. It goes from 1 to 12 across the top, and it goes from A to I down the side. And you have 6 chips in front of you, so it's kind of like you've got your little Scrabble tile holder where you've got 6 chips in front of you, and they all are 6E or 7G or the likes. And whenever 2 of those come together, you have the ability to what they call found a hotel chain. In other words, you've built a hotel, and the board fills up because the first thing you do on each turn is you place down one of these tiles. You want to found hotels, and you want to get some stock in them, because if they get merged into something else, that's cash in your pocket, and that's the whole nature of the game. So you've got this grid thing where you've got chits that you know some of the future state of the game because you have a chip that's going to make a difference, and you want to work that angle. You know the future of 1 or 2 hotels based upon the tiles that you have. At least with any luck, you've got a tile where that's the case. The other half of the game is running your stocks appropriately. And the guy sitting across from me is usually a shark at money games, but at times does not do the chits quite as well as I think he could. So there's a couple of different skills in this game, and those two working together is how you succeed.
Did you mention how you place a hotel? 2 of them touching, was it orthogonally?
Yes, whenever 2 are edge to edge next to each other, you can build a hotel, and it can grow in size. So the stock is cheap when they're small. They keep getting bigger as more and more tiles get placed down, and eventually you'll have 2 hotels that will grow into each other. So you'll have 2 blocks that are separated. Somebody will put down the chip that goes between them, and you now have 1 hotel. And the bigger one gobbles up the smaller one. And the stock from the smaller one is suddenly worth money. And that's how you get that cash back in your pocket. That's why we keep saying you don't want to burn up all your cash, because at some point you're going to grab that magic chip that's going to make one of those disappear. You want to buy stock in that hotel before you place that merger. And suddenly the $800 that you saved in your back pocket is suddenly worth $8,000. And that's the key to the game. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Don't run out of cash.
Don't run out of cash. All right, we're going to play Acquire, and we will report back soon. Acquire is over. We finished.
Yes, we did. And we have a new Acquire champion until we play the next time.
That's right. So as we started the game, we went back and checked my stats, because I keep very detailed stats with the BG Stats app. Everyone should check it out. And the last 5 times John has won handily, so 5 out of 5. I brought the reigning champ to a close.
To his knees.
To his knees, yes.
Solid win.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't claim that it was all strategy. I mean, there was a little bit of strategy, but I got some really amazing tiles. So
yeah, and to some extent, that is the nature of older games. That there is a bit of luck in there, and you need to look at it as a batting average instead of how you do in any one particular play. Because the guy sitting across from me, Chris, who usually is very competitive on financial games like this, just kind of couldn't buy a stock to save his life. Just nothing seemed to work.
I thought I was getting very lucky with the draw in the first couple rounds. I was able to put out, I think I put out 4.
Yeah, you were able to found a lot
I found a lot of hotels, but only one of them. I was involved in one merger for the entire game.
Yeah,
and I think that was the shortest game of Acquire that we've ever played.
That was pretty quick. Yeah.
Normally we don't get hotels out that quickly, and that seemed to speed up the game.
We ended with 3 safe hotels, which usually we get one that's 45, which is an in condition. That's happened a couple times, but usually we run out of spaces on the board to put tiles, and we probably had like another 10 or 15 tiles to put out to get to that win con, or that end game con. So I think, this was one of the quickest games that we played, and I really appreciate John ending the game early because it really sealed it, and it sealed the victory for me, which I appreciate. Thank you so much.
And I don't think I had any choice at that point. I think it was a done deal because you would purchase stock. So at the end of the game, you get paid. You get bonuses, the equivalent of if you merge a hotel chain, and then you get the payout of your stocks. And I did very well in the mergers. I had all the cash I needed through the entire game. But at the end, I only had stock really. Well, I had some stock in the secondary one, but I had a lot of stock in the first one, which paid very well. I got almost $35,000 for my final score. But you guys, you Steven, you just beat me because you had so many stocks that in the other 2 titles or the other 2 hotels that I just couldn't keep up.
Didn't you have the most stock in Luxor?
Yes,
because if you had merged that with American, he would have had to sell all his, and then you would have had a much higher per share, and you would have gotten the larger bonus. So it could have played a little bit of difference.
Could have played different, So
but I had no American.
Right.
So merging American into Luxor would have done me no good whatsoever.
But your Luxor stock would have been that much higher, and you had the majority of that.
Yeah, but you guys would have taken a huge payout when the 2 hotels merged.
Yeah, and it would have only
10, I think it was 5 and 2,500.
It would have only increased the value of his stocks by 100.
Yeah, because at that point
been over 30.
So they step up
from 21 to 30 and 31 to.
It wouldn't have ended the game because then one of them would have had to get to 41.
Right.
Well, they would have all been safe. The 2 that were on the board would have been safe.
Would have still been safe, and that would have been the end of it.
But he didn't have to tell anybody. That is one of the conditions.
And the position I was in, I would have made sure on my turn that everyone knew that everything was safe.
One of the actual written rules is the person who places the tile that makes the game come to an end has to say the game is over. If you don't say that, the game can keep rolling. So I don't know. Presumably, is it possible that everybody sitting at the table can go, well, maybe I won't declare it yet. I think I got an angle on this.
Yeah, I'm going to buy some more stock. I mean, buying stock at the end of the game does nothing for you because you're just going to liquidate it.
In my view,
unless it makes you majority
throughout
owner,
the game does nothing for you.
Right.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, at one point Chris looked at me and he's like, you're handing John his 6th win because I kept doing mergers and
I thought John was involved in every single merger.
And John was involved in most of the mergers, but I'm looking over at John's space, and he's got a lot of stock certificates.
But they're all for hotels that don't exist.
They were all for hotels that he was keeping to hedge his bets that he would be able to
get back out on the board again.
To refound them, and looking at the board, there would be no way that he could do that. So I felt pretty comfortable that
I assumed that Americana was going to be absorbed by Luxor, which he owned the most of. I think that would have made a difference.
Yeah, and I was trying my best to merge it with Tower instead.
Right.
Yeah. Right. If it had merged earlier, then I could have parlayed my stock into Luxor and could have had a better showing.
So all of this comes from there's 2 primary mechanical aspects to this game. One is the stock buying and selling, and you can trade them when hotels merge. But then the other one is your set of 6 tiles that go out onto that board. And I drew junk tiles pretty much the whole game. I had a couple that were keeping American from merging, but I didn't have anything that really did a whole lot for me. I got to found a couple of hotels, but not nearly as many as the two of you did, I don't think. But if you're getting tiles that allow you to control the board, either allow you to press a merger in, and you have that tile, so you say, okay, I'm going to take a turn or two, see if I can get my stocks up on that before I do that. And then the key is you got to kind of watch. Is the guy across from me always buying Luxor? Because that means he knows something that I don't. Maybe I need to get in on that as well and try and fight him off. But if your tiles just aren't working for you, you either got to find a way to manufacture a win, which is what I was trying to do and clearly didn't pull it off, or you just have to understand that, hey, sometimes it's not your night. The next time you play the game, you've got a shot at something. You have to hope that you get a little bit more luck. And in older games, that was part of it. I mean, it was a family game. You had the 9-year-old sitting next to you, and the 9-year-old had a legit shot at winning if she pulled the right tiles. So that was considered okay back then. Now the question becomes, where has that pendulum swung now?
Did he just call you a 9-year-old?
No, I'm saying as an example is somebody who you have a junior player at the table, somebody who is not as experienced with the game, or not as sharp, or not as old, and they don't understand the details. They have a shot at that. Right. Because there is an aspect of luck to it. And to a certain extent, I feel like up through 2005, 2010, everybody was saying luck is evil and that needs to come out of gaming and it's not fair. But nowadays, you have all these games that are coming out with big plastic, and there's a lot of dice rolling. There's a lot of there's a whole lot more turn over that tile and discover that you got an absolute garbage pull compared to the guy next to you who got free stuff. And I think people are starting to become more comfortable with that. And although Acquire is not does not have a big table presence, is the new term for it. They used to call it bling. They used to call it component quality. Mm-hmm. Although there's 6 or 8 versions of this game out of different values of
now, one of them's really nice.
Yeah. So, and you can buy whichever one you want because all of them are available in the aftermarket. You want to buy the first one that came out? You can buy that on eBay for a couple of bucks. I mean, they're all available.
Yeah. Go to any thrift shop or secondhand board game store, or any board game store that has a secondhand. I mean, you can get these things for Acquire. There's so many copies of Acquire in the wild.
Yeah,
it's probably the second most printed game to Monopoly. I would hazard a guess.
Maybe I'll do better with the one with the fancy pieces where it's actually towers and stuff.
That's clearly was your shortcoming tonight. Was that you didn't have the fancy pieces?
I broke the cardinal rule. I ran out of money. I couldn't get involved in a merger, and I was just chasing you guys around. And it got to the point where I was not able to get to that magic number of 13 to hold on to the lead in any stock.
13 stocks, right? Because
there's 25.
There's 25 shares of every hotel, and if you can get to 13, then you own the hotel. And like with Luxor tonight, because the two of you had split 5 each, I just needed to make sure that you guys could not reach me with there already being 10 out. So that's one of the things you keep an eye on to make sure that you are the majority owner and that you get the bigger payout.
So I will admit I probably initiated 80% of the mergers in this game. I had like the perfect tile draw. Like every tile I drew, like either allowed me to found a small little hotel chain that I could invest a little bit of money in and then turn around and just have it gobbled up by my big tower, or even into like Luxor in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So like I really had control of the game. It was my game to lose.
Well,
and
it didn't hurt that you and John had the 2 leading stocks,
right,
and you didn't sell those stocks. And then John a couple times immediately put that back out onto the board. It came back around again, and you merged it.
I mean, those so like in that part of the game, like at that stage, I had, of my 6 tiles, I had 4 of them like in a row that allowed me to found a hotel and then merge it, and then found another hotel and then merge it in. I had like the perfect set of 4. So I knew going into it that I didn't need to liquidate my stocks. I needed to hold on to them because
they were going to get rolled over.
They were going to get rolled over again. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's all about how the tiles come out. Because there have been games where I've just been a bystander. Like none of the tiles that I drew mattered at all.
Yeah.
Like they didn't connect anything, or if they did, it was just like the big one gets bigger.
Unfortunately for me, at the beginning of the game, I felt like I was getting lucky being able to put out, I think, 4 of the hotels to be founders. And then we got that one merge. I was part of that. And then I dried up. All I could do was keep on adding to the size of the bigger ones.
Right, and just
there was no
get the
let
cash
me merge Americana. That was my only hope.
Yep.
Yeah, and see, I think, like, knowing you and how you play, like, that's exactly what you would have done, and it's exactly what you did. I had the exact same situation where I had like 3 tiles in my rack that were all next to each other, and I could have made one big, like, hotel. And I sat there and I looked at them. I'm like, you know what? I bet if I hold on to a couple of these tiles, I can use them later as a merger instead of founding. And that's what I did at the top of the board early in the game between whatever the 2 were in tower.
Right.
And so I just laid 3 tiles in a row, merged them both together, and that was like the beginning of the end for you guys.
Yeah, cash in hand from a couple of quick turnarounds.
I will take that into consideration for the next game.
So I'm the first time we played this game, which was years ago, I got a copy at Barnes & Noble's for $5 during their sale. And it's a cheapy copy, but I like it because they spell Saxon the way Sid Sackson's name is spelled instead of Saxon, and I thought that was kind of cool, but that's beside the point. The first time we played this game, we kind of looked at it like, what the heck just happened? I mean, it's an odd play. The idea of putting something on the board and buying stock in it so that you can eat it. I mean, the whole point is to put something out there to be destroyed, and that is not intuitive for any other investing game you've ever played. You want to build something, you want to grow it, and that's where you make your money. Acquire is really aptly named. The whole point is to get acquired. Mm-hmm. Get that business out on the board, and then have something else gobble it up.
Yeah, it's absolutely in your benefit. It's as you said, it's so strange because in your mind there's this dissonance because you think that you want to have control over the big hotel chain, but in reality you really want to have control over the smaller ones because it's the smaller ones that net you money.
Right.
Because when you merge, you don't get paid for the big one, you get paid for the small one.
Right,
So,
exactly.
like the first game, you're going to play it and you're going to look at it and it's going to be,
I've got stock in the biggest hotel on the board.
I've got controlling stock of the big one. Yes, I'm going to win. And then
you just sit there.
And then you're just sitting there because you've got no cash flow and everyone else is playing the game and you're just spectating. So like the first couple times you play, it's a weird twist that you have to kind of wrap your head around. But, once you do, you realize just like how great of an experience and how great of a rule set that it is.
Yeah. And so simple. I mean, again, very simple rules that produce very entertaining gameplay, very interesting gameplay.
I think that 4 is a better number to play it with than 3.
Okay.
Just because it seems like if I remember the last time we played and then this time we played tonight, there was that kind of groove that one person kind of fell into, where I don't think that I think it's easy for like one person to get sidebarred when there's if 2 people are making money and one person's not, where it's kind of balances out with 4.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. And I will say the only reason I don't is I really think it was the fact that I was getting all the tiles that I wanted and needed. I really think that this game plays really well at pretty much every player count that it's available. So I think it goes from 2 to 6.
Yeah, I think so.
I think 3, 4, and 5 are where this game really shines. The higher player counts, it's like any other game where there's like a centralized board that everyone's playing to. By the time it gets back around to you, the board state's going to be changed enough to where, the 1-2 play that you had in your mind may not be available to you. Where in a 3-player game, you only have 2 opponents like putting things down in your way. So I think, with that in mind, but I really think in this particular case, in this particular game, it was really the fact that I was getting all the tiles that I needed to get. I don't think it was really a characteristic of the player count.
All right. That's interesting. Yeah, I know. At times I have played. I remember one game in particular down at the local game store where every tile I pulled just seemed to be magic, and I just conquered that game. But most of the time I mean, there's enough tile pulls that generally you get a solid set, as good as anybody else. But on occasion somebody gets a nice pull, and that shows. But I mean, just as we were cleaning up the board, I'm watching you count up your stocks, and you just have so many shares left over in those. And it dawned on me that I just was not that deep. A lot of the hotels had come off of the board, and I owned a lot of stock in them that I should have traded in earlier and turned it into cash. And I probably would have picked up $5,000 or $8,000 extra because I would have bought whatever stocks were available.
Yeah, trading them in 2-for-1. You have to really be careful, because while it seems like a really good idea and it can get you like a boost to get that majority or that minority in a stock.
Right.
You really have to be careful, because you might be trading in 2 stocks worth $500 for a stock that is only worth like $700. So you're losing $300 doing that, but if it nets you that majority or a minority, like in a bigger player game,
and if that's where the future ends up being, then those stocks do eventually grow, and they.
So those are always things that you have to kind of take into account.
And there's a timing aspect too, and that's what I found out early. Because early on, I'm thinking, okay, I'm really conquering. I'm getting good money from these things, but I am not in either of the 2 big hotels. And at the end of the game, when you total up, then being big does matter. And I'm like, I need to start transitioning to those 2 big hotels, because that's where the big money was going to be. And I started doing, I guess I did that about the timing was right. I was never short for cash in this game. Sorry to bring that up, Chris. But so, I mean, you need to get into those final stocks towards the end of the game. And I think you did much better at saying, I just need to dump these stocks because the hotels are never coming back.
Yeah, I could tell from the tiles that I had and just the layout of the board that the chance of any of the smaller hotel chains being founded was very slim. So in my mind, it was a calculated risk to go ahead and cash out and liquidate, because I didn't think they were coming back. So.
Yeah, I think you made a better choice. I mean, obviously you did in hindsight, but at the time,
you probably had 20 stocks in hotels that
were defunct.
Yep. Absolute zero at the end.
Yep.
And you figure they were probably cost
and
you
we
$300
bought
or
out
$400.
one of the 2 hotels. Well, there were 3 hotels that remained, but I could have bought stock in American. There were a few shares of American lying around. It wasn't as valuable, but it was certainly more valuable than the $0 that I got from not trading those in, or trading them in for cash and then using that cash to purchase. So, yeah, live and learn.
I think about 2 times a year is about the right amount of play for that. Maybe just 1 time a year.
A couple times a year, maybe 3 times. It just depends on. Sometimes you just need to like take a step back from the complicated new games that, like, I see Mosaic over on the other table, and it's this massive, like, there's pieces all over the board. It takes like half an hour to 45 minutes just to set it up.
Just to get it out of the box.
There's so many rules.
Just
like
to open the box.
It came with 2 rule books so that, everyone at the table can reference if it needs to.
That I like.
That was a good touch.
For that game, you kind of need it because there's so many rules.
Of all the things, like production-wise, like the minis are great, whatever, the board, it looks nice. I don't know if I like it functionally, but having 2 rule books for that game was like one of the best production choices of like 2022. Like, if there was an award for best production choice, having 2 rule books for Mosaic wins. Anyway, having a game that's simple like Acquire, where all the rules are printed on the inside of the box. You can explain this. You could almost explain how to play Acquire in like a matter of like 10 sentences to somebody.
Yep.
I mean, for us, we laid it all out. We pretty much knew everything. We almost didn't have to reference the rules. There were 2 things we needed to reference: how much money we started the game with, and how many tiles we started the game with.
Yep. And the rest we just knew. Even though we haven't played in a while, we just hotel doesn't merge anymore when it's at 11. Yep, that was right.
Yep,
and 44 is the end of the game, and that's
41.
41 is the end of the game, and that was it.
Yeah. So like to have
the
that
cardinal rule.
Yeah, don't
Never
run out of money.
Run out of money.
So I think to have a game like Acquire that's just, It's very deep and very strategic, but it's so rules light. I think having a game like Acquire that's available to kind of like as a palate cleanse is a good thing to have around.
And I'll say this. The game is available in any version you want. Don't spend a lot of money. This is not a game that needs big minis or fancy boards or a lazy Susan or anything else included in it. Buy whatever's out there. Play the game. This is a game where the game itself is all you need, and you might get a copy for $5 at Goodwill. It's a heck of a purchase.
So we've come to the part where we give Acquire our rating. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, we use the Board Game Geek system just because it's kind of the I'm going to say gold standard. Everyone has their problems with it, whatever, but it is by far the most popular and most used standard. So that's what we here at Games from the Cellar use. So I'm going to throw this off to John. John, if you were to give Acquire a rating, what out of 1 through 10 would you give Acquire?
This may be the best 7 we've played yet.
Okay, that's a good 7. That's a good good rating for Acquire. Definitely. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris, what about you? What do you think?
You know, I had a bad performance tonight, but I had to take in all the games that I've played of Acquire, and I've felt like I have been able to be competitive and been in every game. So I had to think long and hard about this, but I think it's a solid 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the most solid of a 7 a game can be. So I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to give it a 7. And it's just, it's a perfect game. Everyone should play it at least once. Everyone should play it at least 3 times. Because that first time, as we mentioned, it's a little bit of a mind twist in that you gotta not think that you need to be in the biggest. You know, that whole like...
You've got to understand the suicide pill and how it pays off to you.
So, that's going to be it for us. That was Acquire. Thank you for joining our conversation. John, Chris, and I thank you for joining us in conversation about Acquire. You can join us in conversation by visiting our website, cellargames.com, where you can find links to our social media and Discord server. We also have a blog and guild on Board Game Geek. We look forward to hearing from you.